Hey y'all, it's Queen Pimp Sun Kiss coming through right quick, right fast, maybe, with part 2 of the Royale review for My Wife and Kids episode 1, the pilot episode. If you have not seen part 1, make sure you tune in. By the time this is posted, I will have made a playlist for My Wife and Kids. And I've already made a playlist for the Best Man series, putting everything in order. Since, I am quite talkative and I'll be having a lot to say about what's going on. So the videos be a little lengthy here and there. So just for a well-rounded convenience, I'll be splitting things up into parts and to make sure everybody is able to find everything efficiently and view them in order. If you want to binge watch, if you will. You know what I'm saying? The folks that get back to it and watch things in bulk want to see it in order. Okay? Because that's kind of the type of person I am. I like to wait until, all the episodes have already played and then go back and watch and get my life that way. But anywho, I'm not going to talk your head off. Just make sure that you see part 1 first. And like I was saying, to make it easier, I'm putting each show and everything, I'm making playlists overall. I'm making playlists for editing so you can find everything efficiently, view it in order, this, that, and the third. And without further ado, gonna go ahead and get into part 2 of My Wife and Kids Royale Review, episode 1. So we pick up later on in the day. Rosa has brought Katie home from school, and Katie has her toys, her coloring book, whatever, what have you. Rosa is making her way out. Her and Michael do their bickering thing, and it seems as though, based off the interaction, and Michael keeps saying that he thinks that Rosa doesn't really like him. It makes me feel like Rosa has maybe been around for about 6 months, maybe. Like, she been there, but she ain't really been there. She been there long enough to build up a repertoire, but she ain't been there long enough for them to know certain things. But no. Now that I think about it, maybe what it is that, remember, like I said, Michael was away. It's implied that Michael was away from the house more at first because he works more. And now, because he's at the place where he is in his business, he's able to be at home more, and Jay is away more. So Rosa has probably been with them for a couple of years, but she's been used to doing the quote-unquote co-parenting thing with Jay as opposed to Michael. And in a realistic sense, based on the interaction, it could also be implied that Jay may have had some vulnerable conversations with Rosa about her and Michael, about Jay and Michael, like issues that they've had in their relationship or issues that she has with Michael, him not respecting her as an individual and as a working woman. And that could be another reason why Rosa was taken back as less of a forefront type of character, because it's so many layers that character, a nanny in general, is so many layers that a nanny could bring to the show, let alone a Hispanic nanny that is used to quote-unquote co-parenting with the mother, and now the mother is in the workforce and the father is home much more. There's also something else that's said in another episode this season, and I don't remember it being brought up again in other seasons. But there are just a couple of things that came up that made me feel like initially they were going for some topics that were much more serious and much more like deep, if you will. And after season 1, execs or whoever, somebody was like, nah, I don't think we need to do this. I think we need to go in this direction with it. But in simple terms, I'm going to say, and I'll get more in depth when we get to that, I feel like they were going to explore a cheating storyline between Michael and Jay. It's some stuff that comes up that makes me feel like they had plans of the background information being perhaps Michael cheated on Jay or something of the sort, and that kind of triggered Jay to be like, oh, nah, let me show you I can be independent. I'm going to go out here and get a job. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to probably do it better than you. I'm going to show you that I don't need you to do every little thing for me. If ever I get ready to leave and take my kids with me or leave them here with you, we can make it do what it do. Anywho. Rosa done brought Katie home. Katie playing with her toys. And we also get to see the intelligence and the variety and access that the kids have because they are being brought up in a privileged or well-off to do lifestyle. So, of course, because Katie has a Hispanic nanny, the nanny has been teaching her Spanish words. And she's talking to Michael in Spanish as he's asking her questions about her day and where is Claire. She tells him that Claire is upstairs. And she also confirms to him that Rosa does not like him. He wants her to switch back to speaking English. He gonna go upstairs and see what's popping with everybody. So he gets upstairs. He gets in Junior's room. And Junior is up there listening to MC Murder Death. And he got the earphones in. He rapping along to the lyrics. It's real graphic. It's a shame and a scandal. A shame and a scandal. Shout out to Aston Shanae, a.k.a. For the Love of Juice. But he goes up there to pretty much just check in with him, see where his head is at, and trying to also stress to him, sir, we live in the suburbs of Connecticut. I need for you to understand that the music you're listening to and what they're talking about, the stories that they're telling about their lives, that is not your life. You aren't ever going to be this thug life, gangsta, hardcore dude, because that ain't where you come from. It is not giving. I need you to know that you can do more and aspire to more than that. It's more to life. And in the process, he ends up spotting some illustrations that Junior has done, and he's drawn these caricatures of Michael in particular that catches Michael's attention. And like I mentioned earlier about the parents not coming from this self-righteous type of place, Michael challenges his art, but he embraces it all at the same time. You know, he like, oh, this is what I look like to you. I didn't know my head was this pointy, all of that. But hey, this is great. This is really great art. You're a real artist, you know, and you really put your mind to this and really embrace this side of yourself. You can do a multitude of things and really bring your dreams into a reality. You just got to dream big. And Junior's like, oh, you mean this to help me with my job at Foot Locker? Showing how, like, it's showing the narrow-minded place that Junior is coming from. I also feel like this is because this show premiered in like 2001, which is a major turning point in the age of technology. And so the generation that we're a part of, I'm much younger than Junior, even as he was in this, at the time of this episode. I'm quite a bit younger than the character and the actor. But this was a time where teenagers or kids were first starting to kind of get more consumed and more exposed to media through technology and being in their own solitude. Also because more women were starting to work. Like it was starting to become much more normalized for women to also work, as well as the man. And yes, we definitely had depictions of working women in the 90s, but there were still constant turning points happening and cycling on over into the early 2000s. And even now, we're still having those constant turning points. But also the early 2000s is more so when we started seeing those conversations happening on these shows, such as Michael and Jay having those exchanges where they're having honest, blunt conversations about how Michael feels about her going to work, how she feels about his mindset and his perception about the whole thing, his feelings about the whole thing, the adjustment, you know, taking over the Mr. Mom role, if you will. And, you know, there are also some parallels to some other shows that came out in this time period as well, such as The Bernie Mac Show, which I'm also going to be doing reviews on. But yes, The Bernie Mac Show is another show that touches on that turning point of displaying and having more conversations about men taking more of a quote-unquote motherly or nurturing role with the kids. Low-key, high-key, because they were forced into it by circumstance. But yeah, Junior and his art. So I said all that to say that it's pretty obvious that Junior has spent a lot of time in solitude with his devices and the rhetoric of his friends. And it affirms how important it is to have parents like Michael and Jay, specifically Michael in this particular moment, that take initiative and take time out to come in and see what exactly is on your mind. Where does it need to be directed to? How can I redirect it? And Michael does a great job at iterating to him, expounding upon the subject, and elaborating the choices he has in life. You don't have to just be an employee at Foot Locker. You can be the owner, and you'll get 100% of the content you want for free. And we also touch on real quick, the teenage obsession of wanting to be grown and wanting to be an adult. And Junior is so excited to show his little peach fuzz on his upper lip, talking about my mustache is coming in. And Michael is like, boy, that ain't nothing. And he like, well, look, I got real hair everywhere. And he want to show him his private parts, honey. And Michael scurries out of the room. Dumbfounded, baffled, confused, a little disgusted, creeped out. So Jay finally makes it home early evening, late afternoon-esque, and Michael stops at nothing, wastes no time wanting to light into her and vent about his day with the kids. And she like, hello to you too. Yes, the meeting with the client went well. I potentially have a promotion on the table. And he like, nah, I ain't trying to hit it. Claire done locked herself in the bathroom. Junior want to show me his man parts. Katie is living la vida loca. It's a travesty around here. The kids are running amok in the palace, and you left me for dead. But she does emphasize to him, look, I just finished an 11-hour shift. It's been a long day. I would love for my husband to greet me, give me a hug, kiss or something. And he goes ahead, he obliges her. And then he proceeds to whine and moan and groan all over. And so this leads them back into the quote unquote traditional conversation in his idea of having a wife and kids, which is, like I said, the quote unquote traditional housewife, barefoot and pregnant. She at home all the time, being the nurturer to the kids. He go to work, he pay for everything. And on one hand, I feel like, okay, it's a drastic change. There's compassion. He's not used to it and all of that. But I also get Jay feeling like kind of fuckless to it because, well, this is what I've been dealing with all this time. Dude, you can handle it. Goodness, you can handle it. Get it together. It's not rocket science. It's not gonna kill you. It's all good. And shoot, men need to form bonds and get to know their kids and stuff. Also, you need to know how to do all of this stuff. Also, why it got to just be me. In the midst of that, because Michael brings up, his aspirations of wanting to have certain things like his parents as far as the dynamic, the housewife, working man, and we get information that his parents hate each other. And of course, if you've already seen, later on in the season, his parents do not even really speak to each other, which lets me know that there's a lot of built up resentment and anger there. Probably because his mama was not given the freedom to live her life and have her own individuality and her own grind. Therefore, not having her own sense of fulfillment. Therefore, very likely resenting his daddy and having a lot of anger and regrets and not wanting to speak to him. But also not wanting to leave because wanting to stick to the status quo of it all. The American dream. But Michael is thinking quantity over quality at the moment, of course, and he's basing his perception on how long they've been married as opposed to if they are actually happy in their marriage. Whereas Jay is trying to present to him quality, actual happiness, greater evolved senses of happiness, enjoyment, and satisfaction. With that being said, he's talking about how he feel like it's his role to bring home the bacon. And Jay is like, well, I got an opportunity to bring home steak. You doing all this, that, and the third, but I want to talk to you about this potential promotion. And it is confirmed also that she does do stock brokering. So she has a broker promotion on the table. And of course, that's going to require more out of her and it's going to be a higher pay. And she had enough respect and consideration to tell her boss that she needed to talk to her husband first before she accepts the promotion. And Michael, of course, is immediately dismissive. He ain't with it because he already ain't dealing with the changes that are on his doorstep and in his household as it is. And he pulled her on her and ditched her in the middle of the conversation. And she like, I want to talk about this now. We're going to talk about it, I guess, when you come back downstairs. Task! But boy, I feel like definitely a great, lighthearted, comedic, well-rounded, balanced depiction of how a marriage can be very love-felt, love-filled, and equally yoked, to be honest, and still be work. Still have its imperfections that could be deal breakers. But because the two individuals involved truly have an understanding of each other and truly have patience and real love with each other, they're able to work through it and find compromise one way or another. So the next morning, Jay comes downstairs, dressed, ready to go to work. Michael is laying on a couch, knocks out. Jay wakes him up and confronts him, and it's like, I'm not taking no for an answer. When you quit your job at UPS all them years ago because you wanted to start your own company. I supported you. Michael cuts her off and is like, you trying to come at me with reason and I ain't going for it. I want to be irrational. Yes, Michael wants to be completely emotional. And it lets me know that there is some spite going on, which I felt like anyway. Michael was being a butt because he just wants his way. So he is saying no and giving her a hard time and being uncooperative just because he's trying to maintain any form of control that he can get his hands on because he is not liking this change. And that leads Jay into going about calling the marriage counselor because she feel like they ain't getting nowhere and they need some assistance. And so he like, you just doing that because marriage counseling give you the excuse to do some shit that all women like to do, and that's talk and spend money. See, all that pig-headed rhetoric and perception. He needs a whooping. So Jay is getting rowdy and she like, oh, what is you trying to say? You not trying to work on this marriage? You not trying to work on this marriage? And this is one of the parts in particular that made me feel like they were trying to have some conversation, or their initial goal or something that they initially wanted to do was explore a storyline or background storyline about infidelity in their relationship. Because when Jay says to him, oh, you don't want to work on this marriage and all this and the third, she's about to call the counselor, he cuts her off and is like, look, I hurt you 5 years ago. I'm sorry, but at some point they even stopped beating Rodney King. And I watched this episode over and over again. And like I said, I have watched My Wife and Kids pretty faithfully. I do not understand why he said that or what he's talking about. And, you know, from what I've learned about pilots and like the behind the scenes stuff and how pilots in the first season versus second season and the changes that get made and all of that, it just really makes me feel like they initially were going to explore some type of storyline that gives us background to how we ended up in this particular moment of a whole lot of changes going on at once, specifically Jay going back to work and trying to form her own independence and individuality. And I feel like they were initially going to make it and have the conversation of, okay, Michael cheated, Michael betrayed her trust, and that presented a wake-up call to her of like, okay, I can't just sit around and wait on him and all that. So yeah, but moving on. So after Jay leaves for work, we get a quick scene with Claire trying it. She peeks down from off the top of the staircase and it's like, Mom. And Michael is like, she just left. So Claire walks down with this fluorescent metallic type long jacket on, clearly out of season and clearly trying to hide something. So she's trying to rush out the door and Michael is like, oh nah, hold up right quick, right fast, turn around, open that jacket. Baby girl got on a sleeveless tube top and a skirt, or was it capris? One of them. She is dressed, scantily clad, and it is unacceptable. And Michael has to express to her that she don't want to attract the wrong type of attention. Now, in certain cases and for certain people, this type of conversation can be a double-edged sword because you don't want to impress upon girls or women that if something happens to them that, you know, it's because of something they did, like, you know, making women responsible for other people's actions. You don't want to impress that, especially upon young girls or little girls. But what Michael is essentially saying here is for her to gain more clarity about herself, gain more clarity about the type of person that she wants to be and the type of person that she wants to be seen as before she just goes about doing stuff just because she sees other people doing it. And that's Claire's thing, doing stuff because she sees other people doing it. And also for the sake of attention from men. And with that being said, I'm going to touch on the fact that I feel like Claire was trying it deliberately. Going with the narrative and the thought that Michael was not at home a lot of the time before Jay started working, Claire, as well as the other kids, but Claire in particular, I feel like is crying out for help in a way, attention seeking, and discipline seeking, if you will. So it's like also kind of, it's similar to what I feel like was going on with Rosa in a way, but a little different because this is actually his daughter. So Claire may have her own feelings and resentment and anger behind not having Michael around so much initially, and also around the sudden change of Jay no longer being around as much as she was before. So there's this combination of being kind of angry with both of them and lashing out, and also her trying to see how much she can trust Michael with and how much she can get away with as it concerns Michael. And I feel like that's also what that scene was showing us. And to wrap it up also, it's a very quick scene, but to wrap it up also, Michael also stressed to her that you want to make sure that you're not trying to attract boys just because of your body, just because of your physicality. You want to make sure that you are leading with your great spirit and your great personality and leading with your intelligence, not your belly button. And of course, Claire storms off once again, heads back upstairs to change her clothes. So we then pick up with Michael. Well, we start off with just Michael in the marriage counselor's office, and their marriage counselor is Michael from Waiting to Exhale. His name is Dr. Boucher on here, but his name on Waiting to Exhale was Michael. He was having relations with the character Robin on Waiting to Exhale. But yes, okay, he's playing the marriage counselor here. And we can infer that he is a bit smitten on Jay. And Jay is a little late, assumably because, you know, she's been working. And Michael is in there. He's waiting with the counselor. You can tell he's a little bit uncomfortable. He's trying to find ways to bond with Dr. Boucher. Dr. Boucher is being shady, writing down little notes or whatever every time Michael says something to him. Jay comes in, apologizes for her tardiness, and they get into it. And you can immediately see, like I said, how smitten Dr. Boucher is with Jay. He's calling her Janet. He stood up to greet her. He's using complete sentences. He's being overtly complimentary. And so he gets straight into, you know, what their gripes are. And Jay is like, he has a problem with me working. Michael cuts her off. And this is where I noticed, too, that Michael has a pattern of cutting her off. But he cuts her off and it's like, no, I have a problem with you working full time. Which I feel like he's full of crap because that's not what he said. He real life, low key, high key, does not want her to work at all. He wants her to be at home, giving all of her attention to him and the kids and making him peach cobbler when he won't. Okay? So, yeah. So, and Dr. Boucher is landing on thick, validating Jay's emotions. He like, no, he didn't, girl. Yes, he did. Oh, that made you mad, huh? Made you so mad you want to hit him. And Michael just has to intervene and it's like, look, Oprah, I know you not. Like, come on now. Y'all just gonna get together and beat up on me like this here? And which I feel like it's so funny because we see a lot of depictions in real life situations on reality TV and in scripted television where the man usually wants to get a male counselor because they often feel like, one, they feel like if it's a woman counselor that the two women will just gang up on them. And a lot of time they feel like that because they know that if there's a male counselor that them as males are going to gang up on the wife. While in this case, they have a male counselor and the male counselor is typically biased and taking Jay's side a lot of the time, even though, you know, it's within reason. It makes sense. But he is definitely being petty and being shady towards Michael because he pretty sweet on Jay. And so Michael cracking jokes and whatnot to let off his frustration and get at Dr. Boucher because of the shade that he putting down. And Jay is like, okay, you see what I'm dealing with? Like, he can't ever just express how he feel. He got to play so much and be passive aggressive and all this, that, and the third. And Boucher is like, well, just ask him. And I feel like that's a good point, too, because I was feeling like in their initial conversations that Michael was doing that as an emotional release. He was being uncooperative as an emotional release. He was being confrontational and combative about the situation and dismissive as a form of emotional release, as opposed to just genuinely having a stable, mature conversation about his feelings. So he says to Jay to ask Michael, how does he feel? And Michael cannot help himself, and he says he feels like committing acts of violence against Dr. Boucher. Also, I must do add that in the midst of this interaction, Dr. Boucher lets them know that they haven't been using their tools. They are being, you know, combative, and they're weaponizing everything against each other as opposed to combating the issue. They've been combating each other, and they need to redirect their energy and focus towards solving the problem and understanding that they are a unit. So the sooner they team up against the issue as opposed to going at each other, the sooner they will have resolution for the issue and they will be stronger as a unit. And that's definitely good writing also, because as we go through the season and the episodes, we get to see that growth happen and them using the tools that Dr. Boucher gave them and becoming stronger as a team and becoming stronger as a unit in order to combat a multitude of different issues. So we transition from that scene over into Claire's room. Michael is going up to check in on her, and baby girl done shaved off her eyebrows. And shout out to the makeup artist in the scene also, because the shaving of her, like the prosthetics or whatever it is that they did, it looks like they may have used prosthetics and bleached her eyebrows at the same time in some type of way. Whatever they did, it looks very good, especially being that it's the early 2000s. It looked very good. It looked like she had genuinely shaved her eyebrows off. Like, it didn't look clunky, very smooth, very nice, very realistic. She done shaved her eyebrows off, trying to look like Jennifer Lopez to impress some boy. I also want to point out that Claire's outfits look like what Maya from Girlfriends was going for, but Claire actually does it right. But I'm gonna let that be for now. This leads them into a conversation of Michael having to really have a heart-to-heart with her about her getting out of this mindset of doing things and kind of dishonoring herself and harming herself in certain ways just for the sake of boys. And he's telling her, you know, boys are going to come and go. They're fickle. They're going to tell you anything just to get whatever it is that they want out of you. And Claire is also being very transparent with him about, like, it's just so much going on. I'm going through so many changes. One minute I'm having, you know, happy-go-lucky moments with this guy I like, and the next thing I know, he's kissing my friend. I'm trying to find ways to fix it. I'm trying to find ways to fit in. And this brings to my attention a parallel also. And I feel like this brings about a realization for Michael, the character, as well, because he's having this conversation and this interaction with his daughter where he's having to stress to her that she needs to have an identity of her own. She needs to have things going on for herself. She needs to love herself first and be whole with herself first, and the right guy will come along. The right guy will respect her, and whatever it is that she wants to do and however it is that she presents herself, she won't have to wear crop tops and shave off her eyebrows for their approval. And in the midst of him doing all of that, you have to also acknowledge, and I think, you know, the character Michael has that internal realization of, wow, I'm giving her this advice, but I'm not practicing what I preach. At least I'm not allowing my wife to practice what I'm preaching to my daughter. And with that being said, I feel like Claire's characteristics, specifically in this episode and in the first season as a whole, are a reflection as well as the examples and the display that she is witnessing between Claire and Michael. I said Claire and Michael. Jay and Michael. I told y'all it's gonna be moments where I mess up and call Jay Claire because of the Cosby Show. But much of Claire's antics going on with her in the stage of her life has to do and is a direct reflection of what she is witnessing with her parents. And that is another thing that stands out to me that makes me feel like they had initial plans of exploring a storyline about infidelity. Because Claire, and they didn't even have to do that, honestly, because we got enough implications of Michael being pig-headed, stubborn, and a misogynist. And Jay having to kind of play twister through the routine of their everyday lives in order to be patient with that and stand up for herself and make her own life for herself at the same time. And with all of that being said, that's where Claire is getting that from. That's why Claire is so concerned. Outside of her being a teenage girl, outside of the normal influences and all of that, Claire is also witnessing her father be a misogynist to her mother and be incooperative, be stubborn, be, toxic masculine, if you will, as it concerns her mother, and her mother trying to make a career for herself, make a name for herself, and get up, get out, and get something for herself. And of course, that is going to show itself in how the children relate to the opposite sex, whereas Claire feels like she has to live her life and present herself to satisfy the desires of boys, because that's how she's seeing her parents operate. She sees her mother doing that with her father. She sees her mother trying to jump through hoops and tiptoe around eggshells and all this and that in order for his approval and his validation. Like, she having a hard enough time just accepting a promotion. And you wonder why Claire is having these identity issues concerning wanting to do what other people are doing and wanting to do what she feels like is expected of her, specifically from boys. But he helps her draw her eyebrows back on terribly. And he cracks some lighthearted jokes in the process, like she said she looked like a thumb, and he was like, well, it should be easy for you to catch a cab. All you got to do is lean to the left, lean to the right. And it's a very much needed, heartfelt scene between a father and a daughter, and them having a conversation that all fathers and daughters need to have. All fathers need to be validating and affirming to their daughters that they don't have to jump through the optical hoops of the male gaze. And I am indeed going to do separate videos on the two Claires. I'm going to do probably multiple videos on both. But I know specifically discussing the relevancy of today and how young girls are influenced by the media, social media in particular, to like do all of these drastic things to themselves and put themselves through all of these drastic things for the sake of approval, likes and clicks and shares and men and all of that. And I just think, you know, both of the Claires deserve their own commentary videos to talk about some things that's going on with them. So just keep that in mind and stay tuned. But we finished off and wrapped up the episode with Michael and Jay linking up in the kitchen. Jay's in the kitchen cooking, and she's doing that shake a booty stir thing that Michael likes. She got on a shirt that's similar to a shirt that I got. But anywho, she cooking or whatever. And Michael comes in, he hear the music, he kind of distracts her a little bit. He sees this chest that she got open that is a chest full of keepsakes and memorabilia of their relationship and milestones and great memories of their relationship. And apparently she pulls out that box and goes through it whenever they are going through dark times in order to remind her, I guess, what she do and who she do it for. Who she with when she lit inside the studio. All I want for my birthday is a big booty. Okay. Anywho. It reminds her what she do and who she do it for, why she stays in the relationship, why she chose Michael, and why she want to maintain him. She said what saved him in this case was a picture of them bringing Junior home and a cherry stem from like ice cream he had bought her or something from a date they went on. Real cute little sentimental stuff going on. It's real cute. I love the implications of it all. But they get into the nitty gritty of what they need to discuss, and Michael starts to be actually transparent about his feelings and how he feels like him quitting UPS was him looking for, you know, overall liberation. And he feels like Jay doing what she's doing is her looking for liberation from him. And I feel like Jay was absolutely correct when she said that he was coming from a place of ego. And I also feel like that's another implication of that infidelity storyline that I feel like, you know, was probably there and got cut. But also, that's an implication of Michael knowing that he hasn't done or doesn't do everything that he really could and should do. Specifically with the kids. And we get to that after Jay cuts him off when he says that, I feel like you're looking for freedom from me and the kids. And she is like, see, no, you think everything's about you. And that is your ego talking. I hate when you go there like he noticed it going down the wrong road. He didn't want to take it there. He stops it in his track. He implements the tools that Dr. Boucher gave them. Stop it in his tracks, rewind, let's go back to the top and try this again. And he reveals to her that he actually truly believes that she is right and that he is just afraid of the change. He doesn't know who everybody is going to be as a result of the change, and he doesn't know who and how he's going to be. And he's concerned about the time. He's concerned about everybody getting older and what he's missed out on. And I definitely feel like that's another implication that Michael was not around the house so much before. He's new to being at home and around the kids more often. And a lot of times, even in real life, we see that go on where the menses, even when the parents are married, and sometimes it's the mama, whoever the initial breadwinner was, they sometimes end up having this guilt, specifically as it concerns the kids, because they've been working so hard and working so much and focused on getting money to provide, that by the time they're around the house more often, they realize they don't really know their kids. They weren't really present for all the milestones. They don't know what these sudden changes mean. They don't know what the mood swings are. They don't know what the interests are. They are confused. And that with that confusion, like I said, comes guilt, comes resentment, and all of that. And that's where that deflection and projection comes from, of how he's been trying to blame her this whole episode, when in actuality he's been having issues with himself and his own actions or lack thereof, and he's been projecting that onto her. And this is where I feel like the conversation and interaction he had with Claire definitely enlightened him and marked a turning point in him, because like I said, you are stressing to your daughter to have an identity of her own, a hustle of her own, interest and a vision of her own, to make up her mind on who she wants to be, but then your wife is trying to do that and you are trying to stop it at every cost. And so he ends up getting to the point of saying, look, I want you to take the job. I want you to do whatever makes you happy. I want you to create the version of yourself that you see yourself being. I'm just afraid. Most of me wants you to win. A part of me is just afraid. And Jay says, well, that'll be the part of you that sleeps on the couch. And they kiss and make up. And the kids are standing out to the side like, y'all nasty. And they proceed to get to dinner. And it is back to the new basics of it all. The kids are arguing. It's a muck being run in the palace. And Michael is enjoying it all, taking it all in, appreciating it for what it is. His wife and kids. So yeah, y'all, this is one of my favorite shows, one of my favorite sitcoms or whatever from back in the day. It's really good to look back at it and see, you know, the different things that I didn't see when I was a kid watching the show. Really great show. But I feel like I talked enough on the episode, and anything else that needs to be said can be said in other videos and picked up on other episodes. So with all of that being said, you all, I have milked this cow dry, and I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back to do these queenly quotas for the next time. And be sure to bless my comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you all light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.